First of all, just to welcome you all. This is my first time to Madison, Wisconsin, Madison Insight, Pine Lake. I got to go to Pine Lake. So, it's been a lovely opportunity to plug in. I've known Citta Subba for over 20 years. And I've always felt that the Madison group was very sincere. So but I've always delegated other people to come. And I thought, well, now that I'm kind of a retired abbot and I have a modicum of freedom, I could come out to Wisconsin, and it was a great opportunity to be out here and to visit you all. This evening, I think this is far exceeded Citta Subba's expectations of people coming, so that, and I expect that people have a whole variety of backgrounds of practice and interests and involvement in practice. So I will try to give a bit of a reflection that might be useful. And I think one of the things, so in Buddhist practice, one of the hallmarks of the Buddha's teaching is the teaching on mindfulness, and both as a quality, but also as a training that one can cultivate and develop. You don't have to wait for some kind of revelation or something. You can pay attention and figure things out yourself. So that's a really important quality, and just to reflect on the ways that we approach it, and of course, say as a monastic, it has formed an integral part of my life for the past 50 years, that cultivation of mindfulness, and but it's also, I think one of the aspects of Buddhist practice is, and at the retreat that I was just leading out at Pine Lake for the group there, emphasizing the importance in Buddhist practice of renunciation, of letting go, of relinquishing, which is bad news for a materialistic, commercialized culture like this, but it's great news for anybody who wants to be peaceful and happy. So it's so that aspect of renunciation in all aspects of the, whether it's around generosity and giving, whether it's around keeping of precepts and having committing to a life of integrity, developing of meditation, developing of insight and understanding. It's all about letting go. It's all about relinquishing. It's all about renunciation. And I was remembering a short quote of a 20th century philosopher, Martin Heidegger, and he said, "Renunciation doesn't take, renunciation gives. It gives the unshakable strength of simplicity." And it's a really beautiful way of thinking about, because usually when we think about renunciation, oh my God, I've got to give something up, I can't do that. Oh dear. But what it's giving is simplicity, and of course, if we're complicating things in our renunciation, and that needs to be investigated. And of course, as monastics, we learn that because a lot of the say for us as monastics, there's no escape, and which is great, because that's the we're so ready to absorb into distraction. And I think certainly living a lay life, a lay practice, then it's important to make it kind of clear what your goals are, what your principles are, what your aspiration is, and be ready to relinquish things in order to accomplish that. And of course, it requires commitment, it requires patience, it requires effort and energy. But more importantly, or along with everything, but quite importantly, is this aspect of mindfulness. And because we need to be clear, and I was just this afternoon talking with the youngest monk on my left, who traveled with me from Abhayagiri. The other monk just came. It's Ajahn Pasanno, who ordained in Thailand. It's over 20 years ago. Is it 20 years? 2002. 2002. Okay, so no slouch either. But talking with the younger monk, who's just this is his first time being a monk really in a place that isn't the monastery, and going over some of the just the perspective on how to hold the rules, how to hold the training, how to hold the discipline, and he was just expressing gratitude of the clarity that he's got through this trip and then through my own encouragement and reminders, and said that it's all about understanding intention, understanding volition in the mind. It's not about keeping the rules absolutely perfectly or keeping them exactly like we keep them in them. They're there to understand volition and intention. So in the same way, all of our, whether whatever we're doing, in our interactions with the world and our who we live with, how we interact, what we do, we need to have the mindfulness and the clarity to understand that volitional impulse in the mind, because that's what gets us tangled up in complication and difficulty. That's what leads us to peace and happiness. So that becoming more and more clear within ourselves, and that's the function of mindfulness. As we reflect on mindfulness as the Buddha taught, I think it is helpful to reflect on how mindfulness as the Buddha taught, because there's you say modern ways of interpreting mindfulness that are maybe a little bit shortcuts, and or just too simple. Like say, just like bare awareness. I mean, what does that mean anyway? But also, when the Buddha talks about mindfulness, it's actually really quite interesting because he never when he's talking about training in mindfulness, like with the four foundations of mindfulness, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of the mind itself, mindfulness of phenomena, it's never mindfulness on its own. It's mindfulness as a constellation of qualities that makes mindfulness work and function. And so that there's a stock phrase that comes up in the discourses over and over and over again throughout the suttas, and there's four particular qualities that that cluster around and create a comprehensive quality of mindfulness, and they I'll bore you with the Pali because it's for those who want to look it up or check it up. And it's but atapi sampajano satima vinaya lokeya bicha domanasa. It's also just to say, I'm not just making this up. This is what the Buddha taught. The atapi is like Ajahn Jeff talks about or translates it as ardent, and that's a good. I mean he usually has a very thoughtful translation, and it's about ardent, and what it's to do with is around effort. Atapi, sort of that with a sense of well, like tapas is a spiritual fire, really, energy. So that so that application of effort, application of an ardency. It's not kind of whatever. There needs to be some ardency there, and effort. In the say from the Buddha's perspective, to see how does the Buddha describe effort? And effort, because usually when we think of effort or energy, okay, I've got to be energetic in my practice. Then we start, we start measuring it of what we're doing. Okay, what have I done? And in order to justify me feeling that I've actually been energetic. And that's not how the Buddha approaches it. If you think in terms of how the Buddha describes right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path, it's all about the quality of heart. Because it's whatever effort there is to relinquish the unskillful, unwholesome qualities that have arisen is right effort. Or whatever effort there is to prevent from coming into being unwholesome, unskillful qualities that that haven't come into being yet. But you know yourself well enough. Okay, I need to be careful here. I need to be proactive in not getting tangled up, or doing something that is ahead of the curve of the whatever is unskillful that we're getting pulled towards. Then whatever effort there is for the bringing into being of the wholesome, the skillful, the beautiful, that hasn't arisen yet, is right effort. And then the last one is whatever effort there is for the maintaining of the wholesome, the skillful that has arisen is right effort. So it might sound like a bit of a tangle of words, but it's a really important perspective to because again that sense of effort, it can be, sometimes doing nothing is the right effort. Sometimes just stepping back and being patient is the right effort. And I saw that with my teacher Ajahn Chah so many times, where especially us as say young fired up monks from the West, and we're really going to do it, and we want to do more, and we want to do it right. Of course, we're suffering the whole time, but we're doing it. And Ajahn Chah said, "Can you just be patient?" And it was just so frustrating to hear. But it was right effort. If only we could have listened. But that sense of ardency, and sometimes it requires real effort. And Ajahn Chah, again, sometimes he would really push us beyond what we thought we could do. And was it difficult? Was it painful? Yes. Did we learn? Absolutely. So sometimes, you have to be willing to push yourself a bit. But that's not all that right effort is. Right effort is really concerned with the quality of heart, the quality of mind that is there for looking after the wholesome, looking after the skillful, looking after the beautiful. Because that's, for within the Buddha's teachings, it's not, there's the terminology, there's a specific terminology that the Buddha uses around the quality of things, and it's not about right or wrong, was it good or bad, was it positive, negative, was it wholesome, was it unwholesome, was it skillful, was it unskillful, was it beneficial, was it unbeneficial. That has a different quality to it, and it's not, there's not a value judgment on it, and there's not a like a creating of an identification, that sort of I-making and mine-making, that me that gets weasels its way in all the time. So that just paying attention to what's the quality. So ardent, to be putting forth effort in a wise and skillful way. That's mindfulness. Another aspect of mindfulness is what's Pasanno, usually translated as clear comprehension. That's its sort of most common translation. A recent translation that I came across that I really like is situational awareness, because it's mindfulness that is contextualizing what one is doing or attempting, and that's really important, because that's so I can remember Ajahn Chah talking about the importance of cultivation of mindfulness, but applying wisdom and applying that. It has to accord with Dhamma. Things have to accord with the Dhamma. And he said, well, a cat's got mindfulness. You know, they never catch a mouse if they weren't mindful. But you know, it doesn't make them peaceful or happy or wise, or a thief. It's a really unsuccessful thief who's unmindful. You know, but that's not what we're trying to cultivate in Buddhism. You know, and that's and there are these days teaching meditation to snipers in the military. It's really helpful. So it's the context, the clear comprehension, that situational awareness is really, really, really important. And so that sense of, and then in the traditional commentaries, that clear comprehension is broken down into 4 different aspects. And clear comprehension of purpose. Okay, and you realize this is, the mindfulness is reflecting on things, and that's actually another aspect that in the traditional commentary in Theravada Buddhism, a very old commentary, that say that clear comprehension is another word for wisdom. So it's that application of wisdom, of discernment. But that clear comprehension of purpose. Okay, what am I trying to accomplish? What's my intention here? What is my purpose for doing this? And there's that one has, because if one doesn't really clearly see that, then you commit time and energy to things that are not very fruitful, not very beneficial, not at all what you are trying to accomplish. And especially if you're trying to meditate, what's my purpose? I'm looking after the meditation object, looking after the kind of the perspective on it. It's really again that relying on this clear comprehension. Clear comprehension of suitability. Is this suitable? Is it appropriate? Is this going to work? Because if we're not, it's again that sense of sappaya, and in the word in Pali is sappaya sampajhano, and it's sappaya it's a word that they've taken into the Thai language, and if anybody's been to Thailand, it's one of the words you'll hear really frequently. That people, sabai. Is it comfortable? Sabai mai? Are you comfortable? Are you're feeling good? You're okay. So that suitability is not just on an intellectual side of figuring something out, but it's does it work to make me happy and comfortable? And it's because our mindfulness practice, our meditation practice, our Buddhist practice is for increasing well-being and decreasing our dukkha. And it's a very simple purpose. The next one is the clear comprehension of domain, in the sense of, is this the right place? Is the right time? Is the right... Because sometimes you can put all sorts of effort into the wrong thing, or you can be, say, speaking with somebody with all the good intentions in the world, and you've got this really clear sense of what they should do in order to really be better people. And it's just the wrong place and the wrong time. it's just clear comprehension of domain. What's the right time? What's the right place? And that takes a real discernment and mindfulness, being really alert. And then that last one is a clear comprehension of reality, is a way it's translated. Literally, it means clear comprehension of non-delusion, which usually how that's interpreted is that the sense of one is clearly comprehending how to not buy into the sense of self and the sense of I-making and mind-making. The underlying, and there's an idiom that the Buddha uses, just very literally translating I-making, mind-making, underlying tendencies to conceit. And conceit in Buddhist terminology is not the same as English, in that, usually when we think of conceit, it's sort of like holding ourselves higher than somebody. But conceit from the Buddhist perspective is trying to fit oneself into some category of, am I superior to them? Am I equal to them? Am I inferior to them? And that is I-making and mind-making. This constant trying to compare, trying to find a footing of, who am I in this? And in the end, what we are is this arising and ceasing of feelings and perceptions and moods and thoughts, and it's all over the map in terms of superior, equal, and inferior. So that not solidifying a sense of me within that. It's sort of recognizing the processes, and in reality, there's some things that we're better at, and some things we're not good at all, or we're okay. But that's, we don't need to create a sense of identity around that. That's an extra burden that we place on the heart, and so that sense of the non-delusion, the clarity of understanding, with that clear comprehension, one is engaging without carrying a sense of self into it. Or if one is, then one's recognizing when one is, and so that you can say, okay, whoa, I've got to be clearly comprehending here. So it's so that ardent, that's how Ajahn just translates it as alert. Usually it's translated as clear comprehension, ardent, clearly comprehending. Next one is actually just mindful, and the Pali word is satima, so it means like possessing mindfulness, having mindfulness, being mindful, being aware, that, and a continuity of mindfulness is what allows say in conjunction with these other qualities. It's what allows the mind to become clear and steady. It's that ability, and mindfulness is, the ability to hold something in the mind without forgetting, and that's because part of the root word for say in the scriptural language for mindfulness is sati, and the root of that sat is the same root as for, say, memory and perception. So it's we're able to hold, to be able to recollect, to hold in mind, so that there is a continuity of clarity because of that, holding something in mind, being mindful of it, and not just the mind flitting all over the place, which it does. That's why we're training. That's why we're practicing. And then the last quality that the Buddha points to it's a bit long, but it's the overcoming, say, greed and distress toward the world, or overcoming covetousness and grief toward the world. And the world is not just out there. The world is also in here, and that's. But it's like when the Buddha uses the world as a terminology, it's including everything, external and internal, coarse, refined, far or near. This is the world. Or there's one time where the Buddha is asked, he says, the world, what is the world? And the Buddha says, that whereby one is a conceiver of the world or a perceiver of the world, that is the world. And so it's an internal thing, because whatever's out there, it's only out there because we're perceiving it, recognizing it, seeing it, and it affects us. And of course that effect is we're pulled, we're attracted towards it, we're repelled by it, we're upset by it, we're confused by it, and mindfulness is essential for being able to create that clarity that allows the mind to navigate the world, so that those aspects of effort, of situational awareness, of being mindful, being present, being clear, and being able to strike a balance between the liking and disliking, the wanting and not wanting, that is inevitable. I mean, it's part of our human experience. But do we have to be confused or suffer? No. That's the whole purpose of these teachings, and the whole purpose of the different trainings, and the cultivation of mindfulness is it's a key to establishing the clarity that starts to see the benefit of generosity and giving, of kindness and compassion, living a life of virtue and integrity, of being, taking the time to sit quietly and quote unquote do nothing, and to reflect deeply on the nature of the causal process that we call me, and the causal process that we call the world around us, and that's the essence of wisdom. So that mindfulness is it's more nuanced than is usually assumed, and which is not surprising. The Buddha was pretty comprehensive in his knowledge and understanding. So So anyway, those are a few thoughts for reflection this evening. I'll offer that. That's okay. And we can, I got a bit of time to open it up for a few questions. It's on a mission.
I didn't think to record it, so at least I'll record the questions.
Well, Nan and John got it.
I know, I'm thrilled.
If anybody's got a question, you can just raise your hand. Yes?
Too shy. Could you speak a little bit more about the development of intentions?
Well, I mean, I think it's just, we've got intentions forming all the time. It's just like clarifying, where do we want to direct that? And that's where that training the mind to think in terms of wholesome and unwholesome, skillful and unskillful benefit. Like in Pali, it's kusala and akusala, rather than the good or bad, right and wrong. I approve of it or disapprove it. Or, it's because there's so much me involved in that, and it's but the that setting and intention is like, I think a better word, because it forms the foundation of, say, from a Buddhist perspective, one of the foundations is the teaching on karma, but karma is the especially from a Buddhist perspective, all karma is it's the verb. Karma is the verb to do. So it's what we do by body, speech, and mind, and the result is vipaka. But all karma is conditioned or predicated from that intention, or I don't like that translation so much. I think a better translation is volition, like a volitional impulse towards something, a moving towards it, a mental inclination, so that we can start. And of course, our minds incline all over the place, but we can start training it, and we can start planting the seeds of skillful things, so that the Buddha is, the inclinations toward generosity, to kindness, to non-cruelty. Those are fundamental to the volitions that really support us and nurture our well-being and happiness, and our ability to bring well-being and happiness into the world around us. So that and then recognizing that when we see volitional impulses that are unskillful, it's not necessarily or isn't a commentary on how good we are or how bad we are. It's something that is okay. Maybe that's unskillful. That needs to be let go of. That needs to be restrained. We need to cultivate something that counters that. So it's like recognizing process. And I think that's one of the things in the functions of wisdom, is that recognizing that the way the world works, and meaning us as well, is through causes and conditions. And we can cultivate, we can support, we can encourage, we can put our effort and energy into the causes and conditions that will start to shift and change things in a really wholesome and beneficial direction. Yeah.
Is there a concept that this practice and belief system will spread in the world through through modeling or whatever qualities you or we bring to the world that would eventually, if we're all still around, address war and climate change and things like that? I'm curious about like that picture, and then also other people have other belief systems that they draw certain kinds of strength and direction from, so there could be harmony about that, but I'm just wondering if there's that kind of a picture.
Not really. I mean, in the sense that that's not the main purpose. It's not a messianic. The Buddha was not. He wasn't a prophet trying to. He was somebody who realized truth and taught it to others so that others could practice it and learn it and benefit from it. And of course, the more and there's actually many places in the discourses where the Buddha talks of, you are practicing for the welfare and happiness of the many folk. But the practice is laying the foundation within oneself. It's not sort of going out and trying to get people to, because that never works anyway. But the reality is, say, as human beings, nobody gets up in the morning and looks in the mirror and sort of says, how can I be more confused and miserable and suffer more? It's the kind of the even if it's not articulated, the feeling is how can I be more happy, more peaceful, more wise, and coming into contact with others who, say, give that example or encourage us is something that we pick up on and want to do. So it has a. That's why, say, like the presence of somebody like the Buddha, the effect was still felt 2,600 years ago. Just his insight and his compassion are still reverberating 2,600 years from now, and in different ways, other teachers like, my teacher Ajahn Chah, he say, he was born in this little village along close to the border of Laos and Cambodia, in one of the most rural parts of Thailand, and the effect he's had is absolutely amazing. Many people have heard his teachings and kind of are touched by them, and then the people who he has trained and taught others. So I think it just taps into the deep wish within the human form to want to be peaceful, to want to live harmoniously. We managed to mess it up pretty well, but deep down, it's not what we're aspiring to.
So wholesome, skillful, beautiful. I think I got a grip of the other two, but can you define skillful?
Well, skillful is what works, what doesn't work. What's kind of beneficial. It's just a catchword to cover that sense of, because we can we can be, again, that's where that clear comprehension of both the time and place and circumstance and people, you can have all the right intentions, and but be really unskillful in implementing them, and there can be a lot of confusion or regret and remorse within oneself, and some ruffles that ripple out. So that sense of skillfulness of what's actually works, because that's one of the things that the Buddha really was practical. It's like, well, what works? And that's one of the things that I've seen in the tradition that I come from, Northeast Thailand. That's, as I was saying, it's very rural. This is basically a agrarian society, and everything is really down to earth. And I remember one of the instructions that a teacher of my teacher, Ajahn Chah, and him saying this practice is not that difficult. If the defilements come at you high, then you duck. If they come at you low, then you jump over them. You're skillful at working with things. There was a question there before. Yeah.
So if one is not delusional about I and my, then karma, it's not my karma.
Oh, oh, yes.
So
it's not anybody else's either.
But at the same time, Catholicism, I'll say, or what's the other one? Just religion in general, guilt is a big part of it. The karma, what I do, asking for forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and then loving kindness comes in Buddha's world, and to have loving kindness for any of my unskillful actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, even if I forgive myself, perhaps the other person is unforgiving.
Yeah.
So, do we say it's not my karma, or it is my karma, or we don't? Is that delusional?
Well, well, there's all sorts of layers of delusion there, but no, in the sense of when we are conceiving of, because what we're looking at is the sense of action and the fruits of action, as opposed to me, and we're still going, and this bundle of thoughts and feelings and intentions and volitions, we'll still feel, say, the results of our actions, but we can also have the sense that we can change that, and we can work with that. And part of, and there's also the element of, there's forgiveness you can always do, and that is something that you reap the fruits of, that quality of forgiveness within the heart all the time. And basically as soon as you turn to forgiveness and there's a loving kindness. Now whether or not, because there is a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, and one has to sort of acknowledge the fact that our actions can be quite complicated, and somebody might not be ready to forgive, and with some people might one might not even feel ready to forgive. But there's, for oneself, we can have forgiveness for the negativity that's creating suffering for ourselves, and we can work with that. And as we lay that foundation, then there may or may not be reconciliation, but at least we're coming from a place of clarity and well-being, and it's just important to keep laying that foundation of clarity and well-being.
Very good, very good. I think it's values too. I mean, if I have values, whatever are values, mine or,
Mm-hmm.
and I act according to my values, someone else may be offended, and therefore, I feel I'm doing a skilled action, but it may not be received as a skilled action. So that's the layering and the complication.
Yeah, and I mean, there's in the Dhammapada, there's the Buddha sort of saying, nobody in this world lives their life without being criticized. And even the Buddha was criticized. So I mean, if the Buddha couldn't get away from it, then there's no hope for the rest of us. But you realize, well, that's the way things are, and you try to work with as much kindness and clarity as possible. There's a question.
Yeah, I have.
Right. Sorry.
As we think about the word renunciation,
Yeah.
relinquishment, right, and think about the monks and the others, right, is there a different scale for renunciation?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. But it's also, again, it's sort of what's a.
The question. Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I heard it.
Well, is there a different, like in the terms of renunciation, relinquishment, is there a different scale between the monastics and the lay? And yeah, I mean, my whole life is structured around renunciation and relinquishment, but and I also live in an environment, and everything supports it. So on a certain level, the bar is a bit higher, just because there is a whole sort of structure to help support that. But that doesn't mean that, because it's the principle or the heart of renunciation that's most important. Because also you can live a monastic life and just walk through it blindly. After a while, you get used to things. And, I know lots of people who do that. So and then there's, it's just, but that living a life that is conscious and reflective and willing to relinquish and let go according to circumstance. Because also, living in the world, you've got responsibilities, you've got duties, and there's a level of acquisition and accumulation that is essential to live a comfortable life and to do one's duty and look after the people around one. I mean, I can live with a certain level of renunciation because it supports me, and I'm also committed to it. So that in the sense that one of the things, say as a monk, I don't have any money. I don't carry money. I don't use money. I don't. And say with things like food, we don't grow it. We don't, as monks personally, we can't store it. So even you get something nice today, we've got to give it up and hope that something gets offered the next day. And sometimes we go on wandering tours. Well, it was a while ago, a couple decades ago, that I went on just a wandering tour as a monk. There's 2 monks, no money, no lay person with us to sort of help look after us, make sure we're cared for and fed. Walking from Patna through Nalanda, Rajgir, Bodh Gaya, Banaras, just walking. And for most Indian people to sort of say, walking through Bihar, my God, with nothing, and fine, got fed, got looked after, it was safe. It was, but there was a renunciation there. You have to be willing to try it. And monks have done that, say, from our monastery, say, walking out in different directions, wandering through Northern California up to Oregon, Washington State, just wandering with it. They usually go with 2 monks, but not with any lay people, and then just wandering and see where you don't quite know where you're going to end up at night. You don't know what if anything's going to be offered the next day, but somehow it works. But there has to be a level of renunciation. If you try to control it or worry about it too much, you just drive yourself batty. Okay, last question.
I have a close family member who has schizophrenia,
Mm-hmm.
and he tends to just talk at lengths
Yeah.
at you. But he's wanted to open up and talk more about things and get some more help. And I was curious if you just had any guidance of how to manage through that, because I feel like an onslaught coming at me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the capabilities just yet of taking that fully on. But I also want to provide him with possibly some guidance from the Dhamma if he's open to it.
Yeah, I think part of it is trying, especially with somebody with mental illness like that, don't get them meditating.
Yeah.
Activity is really important. So that trying to find some skillful activity, some wholesome environment that they can be around, and where they can be helping out in some way, and then you can be talking and engaging from that point. But to just sit down and talk with somebody who's experiencing difficulty like that, it's better to have a context of support, like a supportive action around, is really, and so aspects of that support generosity, helping other people. There's, whatever is there's got to be tons of stuff in, say, like a place like Madison, where you can be, some soup kitchen, some kind of helping out in some way, some kind of service, and that's really helpful, very supportive. And then it also gives you something to be doing, which you don't have to be talking all the time. But it's really, it's very grounding, and then it's imprinting really, happy qualities. Okay, I'm going to call it a night. Tonight I'm still, we leave here and go down to Chicago to spend the night and catch the plane back to California tomorrow. So I delight in seeing you all, and sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.